You know, all in all, guys, I've been really pleased with the way our players responded this week. I think I told you earlier in the week that this week's kind of the tough week for the players, and I think they struggled a little bit today. But for this entire week, we've been really practicing well. A lot of guys giving lots of effort, playing fast, really pushing through, and showing the kind of resiliency, mental toughness that we really need to develop on our team. I really do believe in our players. I think they believe in each other. There's certainly some guys on our team that we need to get to develop, some of the characteristics of being a mature competitor, being able to play with more consistency. But that's why we practice, and that's why they make mistakes, and that's why the best opportunity they have to learn is when they make mistakes. And you've heard me say it many, many times before. This week is really all about improving, technique, assignments, mental errors, understanding, making application to different things that, we're going to see throughout the course of the year, and we're trying to expose them to as much as we possibly can. Tomorrow we'll use tomorrow's practice to try to get them ready to scrimmage. So, in this particular scrimmage, I think we'd like to see, some of this be sort of game-like and play it a little bit like a game in terms of substitutions, and, we want to get an equal amount of plays where, both sides get an opportunity to be evaluated, and the players on both sides get an opportunity to get evaluated. But I think that it's really important that from a staff standpoint as well as a communication, game administrative standpoint, that we play part of this scrimmage like a game. Our players actually moved out of the dorm today, but that's for really administration reasons. Camp is not over to me, just yet. So, and everybody has to be responsible, for that. Injuries and personnel updates. We really don't have any new injuries. Gino's done a little bit. Eddie kind of gave him a day off today. So we don't have any overuse problems with him, but hopefully he'll be better tomorrow. Leon is back to where he's doing some things in practice, and we're trying to put him on a pitch count where we don't break him down, and he has a chance to grow and develop, and maybe by next week, actually be full speed. We expect Ashawn to be able to do some things on the field, over the weekend and the first part of the week, and be back with us, as well. So nothing new to report from an injury standpoint.
Thank you. I hate to be the person to ask the question about fumbles and addressing fumbles. Both TJ and Kenyon had a couple last year, that critical times. Is that something you address in practice, don't address, and do you feel like those guys are dependable headed into this year?
Well, I think it's something that you drill in practice, and I think the better your defense is at, because we practice so much against each other, the better your defense is at finishing and trying to create turnovers, the more ball awareness and ball security you actually develop on offense. But we do the old-fashioned gauntlet drills, and every day in practice, we keep ball disruptions, turnovers, cause fumbles, recovered fumbles, both sides of the ball, so that every player is aware of how he's taking care of the ball. And especially last year toward the end of the year, we'd done a really good job turnover-wise, and I think we turned the ball over 3 or 4 times at Mississippi State, and then we turned it over 3 or 4 times in the bowl game, and very, very costly, in the bowl game in terms of the points off of turnovers. And we do a big presentation on, basically every time we turn the ball over, the value is between 3 and 4 points. That's the net outcome, all right, of a turnover. It's also the net outcome when we get one. All right, so it's important that the defensive players are trying to get them, and it's important that the offensive players take care of the ball. But it is something we talk about. I think turnover ratio is one of the probably the most significant statistics relative to winning and losing.
Coach, how do you feel about your defense right now, considering you've got some guys that are hurt, you've got to replace some key guys like Mosley, and you're going to probably lean on a couple of young guys early in the year?
Well, you know, I think, you know, right now the defense is, you know, we're not disappointed in what they've done. We're certainly not satisfied with where they are, and we're not pleased that we don't have the continuity that we'd like to have. But, you know, that was created by choices and decisions that people made. Some of it can't be helped. You know, when guys get injured, they can't be penalized for that. But we're hopeful that, you know, we'll get these guys back, and, you know, maybe that we'll end up starting camp with these guys more like next week, you know, some of them than maybe like some of the rest of the team did. But I think all those guys will eventually make a contribution as long as they do what they're supposed to do. I think that we have some guys that are really playing well on defense. Cyrus Jones is really having a good camp. Landon Collins is really having a good camp. You know, Petway's really doing a good job. You know, we've, you know, Trey's kind of getting healthy, so he's kind of coming back to it. Reggie Ragland has really had a good camp. You know, we need more guys to develop the kind of continuity on defense if we're going to be good on defense. So we're certainly not where we need to be or where we want to be.
I wanted to ask about Dylan Lee. Has he become the player that the coaching staff can trust on the field and off the field, or where is he in that development?
Well, you know, Dylan is a very responsible player on the field, and you know, he's done a good job for us. He plays multiple roles. He has really good knowledge and experience. You know, I think he's matured a lot, and I think that, you know, he has learned a lot from the experience that he's had here, good and bad. And, you know, I've sort of seen that maturity and been pleased with it. But, you know, all these things are a work in progress, man. You know, you gotta make good choices and decisions all the time. You know, here's something that I know I'm supposed to do that I really don't want to do. Can I make myself do it? Here's something that I know I'm not supposed to do, but I want to do it. Can I keep myself from doing it? You know, that's the moral path that we all have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and no different for the players. And they got to make the right choices and decisions that represent themselves, the family, our program, and the other players on the team. And if they don't do that, there comes a point where they can't be a part of the team. But we're pleased with, you know, the way he's reacted and responded, and he's done a good job.
Andrew on the left.
Just go more on Saturday scrimmage, just quarterback-wise, will anything, how much more will be different for them and what you're going to be looking at from them on Saturday?
Nothing. Nothing. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say. They're both going to take an equal number of snaps, just like they did last week. And if you keep asking questions about it, we probably won't give you their stats again.
I wanted to ask you about the offensive line, how they looked in practice and how they.
Sure, you don't want to ask about the quarterbacks?
Offensive line.
Well, you know, that's another area where, you know, a couple injuries to Leon and Dominic, you know, Jackson has, you know, those guys would have both either been starters, competed to be starters, or at worst case, you know, been really, really good backups and provided a tremendous amount of depth, you know, for us as a team. Both those guys are big, they're physical. That's what we've tried to create in the offensive line, to be a little more physical this year. I think we're developing okay. You know, Ryan Kelly and Shepard have certainly played well. RE has done okay, but, you know, the other two spots we need to play with a little more intensity, consistency, toughness, and, you know, we're going to keep working on those things, whether it's, with the players that we have and create competition to try to help, you know, hopefully improve the performance that we get there.
Just first off, I don't know, you had a team from Japan out here last night at practice. Did you ever get a chance to talk to any of those guys or interact at all?
No, you know, I really wanted to talk to them, but, you know, they didn't get there until after we started practice. And, you know me, I don't do much talking to anybody but the players during practice. So I didn't get to talk to them, but we were really pleased and excited, and I think the players were too, to have, you know, visitors from another country interested enough to come and watch. I will say that a couple times I was really kind of anxious to know what they were thinking, like, you know, how does this compare to what we do? You know, but
I'll ask them tonight. I'll let you know what they say.
Excuse me?
I'll ask them tonight. I'll let you know.
They still here?
Yeah, they play tonight. They have a game.
Oh, they do?
Across the street at the high school.
Yeah, I would like for you to ask them that. I'd like to know that. I was curious to know that.
One other thing about Bradley Silva, he's a guy that, you know, we'll see a lot of. What kind of guy is he? What kind of player is he?
Who's that?
Bradley Silva.
Bradley?
Yeah.
Bradley's done a really good job in camp, and he's a guy that's made steady improvement. Never really played a lot of defensive back in high school. Didn't play corner, and very conscientious guy that has really developed nicely. The big issue with him last year was, you know, being able to stay healthy. He became a starter, played for 2 games, got injured, missed 3 or 4. So, you know, that's going to be a real key for, you know, us in the secondary this year, to me, that we can stay healthy and keep some guys healthy, so that it'll give us some chance to develop some of the younger players, and, you know, maybe some of the injured guys like Eddie can, you know, get back to full speed here at some point in time. All right, thank you.